Lesson 6, Parts of the Violin, from Learn Violin Fast, Book 1. We have the scroll, we have the pegs. The nut is where the strings sit. This part of the violin is called the neck. The left hand holds the violin by the neck. The fingerboard, this black piece of wood called ebony, is where we place our fingers, so it's called the fingerboard. So this is the fingerboard. There are the strings. The bridge is where the strings sit. Let me see if I can get a good view. This right here is the bridge. The strings are supported by the bridge. This is called the tailpiece right here. It kind of looks like a tail. The tail supports the strings. This is the chin rest because a chin rests on it. This is the end button. These are the F holes. These are the sides, or the sides of the violin. This is the back of the violin. And again, this is the scroll. So to play the violin properly, we really need to know just what the parts are. So when we talk about a particular part of the violin, or the neck, or the chin rest, or positions, it really helps to know what the parts are and also what they do. So the scroll is really just decorative, right? And my violin has a custom scroll of Paganini, but most violins have an actual scroll that looks like a piece of paper rolled up, scrolls from before we had actual paper. The pegs here are very important. The pegs hold the string. So the pegs have a tiny little hole inside of them, and the string goes through the middle, and then we wrap it around, and that's what supports the strings and keeps its tension. The nut here, right here next to the fingerboard, I know it's a little hard to see, but there's a little piece of wood here, and it basically just supports the violin strings above the fingerboard so it can play open, or it can play with fingers on the string. The neck supports the fingerboard strings, and basically we support the violin by the neck, right? This is very important just because this is how we change the length of the string. The F holes are for the sound or the air to escape from inside as well as outside of the violin. The shape of them is decorative, but it's very beautiful. It's probably one of the more defining parts of the violin is the F holes and their shape, very beautiful. The bridge is a key component of the violin. Without the bridge, there will be absolutely no sound. So the bridge not only supports the strings of the violin, but it also transfers the vibration to the violin's top. And if you recall from previous videos, the violin's top is responsible for 90% of the violin string production. And if you go to a symphonic orchestra, you hear violin solo or duet. Usually at a classical concert, it's always unplugged or acoustic, so there's never amplification. So the fact that the violin can play loud and carry a beautiful melody in a big space with lots of people is really quite incredible feat of engineering from really just the early Renaissance and the Baroque, and people kind of just figured out how to make it work. All right, so without the bridge, there's really no vibrations, there's no sound. The tailpiece essentially just supports the strings on this end of the violin. Inside the tailpiece, most often you will see some fine tuners. They're little tiny screws that act on a lever. When you push the screw in, they pull the string back, increasing its tension and making a higher pitch. Or when you left it loosey, you make the string lower by going forward. The lever goes forward, or the fine tuner goes forward, and decreasing the string's tension, thus making it sound lower. This is how we tune the violin, mostly with the fine tuners, but also with the pegs as you get more advanced. The tailpiece is held in place by the end button here. It's a little hard to see, but there's a little loop it supports, right? So you have end button, and then the neck and the peg box or the scroll holds the strings. And then the chin rest is basically, it is what it is. It just our chin rests on it. And we'll get to this later, but I use a shoulder rest. Some people use a sponge. And the shoulder rest basically just helps to support the violin on the shoulder. Without it, you can still play. Very famous Jascha Heifetz played with no shoulder rest. So you hold it on the collarbone and you support it with your shoulder. But that's a lot more difficult to play. So majority of players nowadays use a shoulder rest or some kind of shoulder pad to help support the violin, which we will get to later. Just thinking ahead, when we pluck, we always pluck away from the bridge. And when we bow next to the bridge, but we are going to get to that later. Right now, next video will be a quiz of what the parts are and properly being able to identify what is what so that you can correctly learn how to play the violin. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.